be confident in your message, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
you feel like you're being called to share something with
Mhm.
people that maybe you've overcome something that you want to help people with. That message is important to somebody, and you're an authority in it. If you know something that other people don't,
Mhm.
and they want to hear it, then just go for it.
Welcome to Podcast Coaching for Kingdom Entrepreneurs. I'm Kristin Fields Chadwick, your podcast coach on this transformative podcasting journey. Our mission: empower Kingdom entrepreneurs to confidently launch and grow podcasts, fostering a journey of being seen, being heard, being known, and making a lasting kingdom impact. This is Podcast Coaching for Kingdom Entrepreneurs. Your voice matters. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Podcast Coaching for Kingdom Entrepreneurs. I am your podcast coach, Kristin Chadwick, and I have the lovely Tanya Smith with us today. And I am so excited to really unpack a conversation that is near and dear to my heart, since I am one of these things that we're going to talk about. But first, I want to just welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, let's just jump right in. First, I want to just tell what we're going to talk about, and then I want you to share about your story, because I feel like that will help feed into our conversation.
Okay.
So, we are talking about how being an introvert uniquely qualifies you as a podcaster. And for a lot of people, hearing that statement, you're like, but wait, what? Podcasters are not all an extroverts. Wait a minute. So I love this conversation because I have my own thoughts with that. And also, being someone who is an introvert, this is very near and dear to me. So I would love for you first to share your story and just how you discovered this sweet spot of introverts in the business world.
Sure. So I started as a freelance graphic designer in, I don't know, 2006 or so. When we moved and my employers were like, "Would you just freelance for us?" I
Mhm.
was like, "Sure." So then I had to start going out and finding other clients. And so I I went to some networking events, and it was horrible for me, just like like, this is
Oh,
awful. I'm
I
never
know.
gonna do it again. Like, don't know what to say, feel like an idiot, like that kind of stuff. And so for years, I just kind of tucked myself away in my basement office, trying to find clients, and just felt really isolated. And I had several clients, like I had enough clients, but they were international, like, I never met them in person, that kind of stuff. And after I had my third baby, I wanted to do something different. Like I was just feeling burnt out, and their expectations of deadlines and stuff were not realistic anymore. And so I wanted to start working with local people, and we had moved to a new city then, and I just didn't know anybody. And so, I was starting to learn more about an actual business beyond just what I was doing, and having to start put myself out there and meet people. And I don't remember when I learned about the term introvert and extrovert, but when I did, I was like, oh, like that makes so much sense.
Uh,
Because I'm not necessarily shy. I was a cheerleader in high school, and, involved in all the things, but just like being put on the spot or being in big groups, going to events, just never felt comfortable, just always drained from those experiences. And so learning more about it, I was able to figure out my strengths, figure out, what wasn't going to work for me, and just how to deal with some of the challenges that come with being an introvert. And I was able to build my personal brand to being very well known and sought after, not only in my own city, but throughout, kind of the world, which is the cool thing about the internet.
yes.
And so I wanted to write a book about personal branding. I'm a branding strategist and designer, and was kind of strategizing with my mastermind group about how could it be unique, not just a book about personal branding. And so we came up with my story of overcoming introversion, and I really wanted to share that. And I kind of looked through my life, like what are some strategies I developed, how have I overcome that? And so I'm really excited to share those. And when we were talking, I was like, I don't have a podcast yet, but it's something I've been wanting to do. And I talk about speaking in my book and how introverts, I think, are afraid of that. But
Hmm.
most introverts like to plan in advance. We're very, kind of intellectual. We like to think deeply. And so speaking and being able to prepare in advance is actually good for introverts. And then for a podcast, like, because introversion is all about energy, right? Like going out and being in front of people and having to talk to a lot of people drains our energy. So you can be in your office in your pajamas and do a
That's
podcast.
true.
Like you don't have to go be in front of people. You can think in advance about what you're going to say. And so for me, I've been a guest on a lot of podcasts. And for me, it's been a really great way to get in front of a lot of people without actually having to be in a room with them.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's like one of the things that I have discovered is like the comfortability of like this is good right here. This is amazing. And truly, you could be in your PJs if you really wanted to. But yeah, I have found too that introverts are such deep thinkers
Yeah.
that it requires some tools to get out what is going on internally inside of their head, outside of their mouth well. Do you have tools for those of us that struggle with that internal processing always going and getting out what is going on the inside?
Yeah. So from a branding perspective, just having messaging that's been thoughtfully created to portray your value and what you really do for people and who you work with, having that written in advance and just kind of like not necessarily memorizing it. I mean, you could, but just knowing like these are my talking points. This is what I do. This is what I offer. And then in sales too, it's really helped me to have like actual memorized phrases of like, this is how I ask for the sale. This is how I present what I offer. That's really helped me not feel like I'm on the spot. And then one other thing I was going to mention too is introverts tend to be really good at having one-on-one conversations. And so that's another plus for podcasts, right? Like if you're interviewing people, it's a conversation and it feels really comfortable. And so, yeah, but as far as getting out there, what you're thinking, yeah, for business, kind of planning that out in advance and just knowing it is really helpful for anyone in their branding, really, really nailing it down and maybe getting help with that if you're not sure how to really express what you offer and the value that you bring.
Yeah, I think that's a good point is having outside help where they can pull
Mhm.
out those things that you probably are like, oh, I didn't even
Right.
think that that could come out that way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes it helps to just have another person there to process and to ask those questions and then get clear on, like you said, these are my talking points. And
Yeah.
we both are part of a group called Brand Builders, and you are a strategist in there, which is awesome. Love all of you coaches in there. Bless you.
Well, I
um,
was. I'm not anymore, but I was
okay.
before. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's a really cool program. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So I love how they really structure, they have a very specific way of like, here's how you can outline
Mhm.
your main talking points and then
Right.
really dig in deeper and deeper and deeper, which I
Mhm.
think it's brilliant for a podcaster who like you, like where you're introverts in podcasting. Like that's a
Right.
very specific topic that we can dive into. And again, it is really utilizing that introverted process of like, okay, if I sat by myself before an interview and was like, okay, what are those things that I want to make sure that I ask? What are
Mhm.
those thoughts and processes beforehand before I press record that I want to make sure that I get across?
Right.
It's going to be super important. Ugh, so good. So good. So, as far as I know, because you have a free gift for our listeners, and I was able to read through it, which is part of your new book coming out. And first, tell us the name of the book.
Okay, so it's called The Introvert's Guide to Personal Branding: How to
Okay.
Put Yourself Out There Without Changing Who You Are.
Awesome. Ugh,
Yeah.
who doesn't want to read that? Oh my gosh. I'm telling you guys, I already read the first chapter and you can read the first chapter too. But I love that you dove into specifics of how and I'm sure even more in the meat of your book, but I would love to touch on just a few of those as a podcaster of introverts, of tools for introverts that you can kind of get over that hump. And one in particular that I know is going to be a topic, especially with like my podcast members. There's a lot of introverts in there, which is really interesting. They
Yeah.
have come together and in a community for support, which I love. I love. But some of them have asked the question of how do I promote my podcast on social media
Hmm.
when I don't even like social media?
Right.
So what are some of those hurdles that we could jump over?
Yeah, so I think introverts can go either way on social media. Like for me, I love it because again, I'm not physically in a room with people. I'm sharing myself and connecting with people in that way virtually. But yeah, a lot of them same thing. Like I don't want to have to do reels. I don't want to talk on a video. I don't know what to say or I don't want to share my personal feelings and life. So
Yes.
I touch in there a little bit about again, the messaging, right? You've got your messaging. The good thing with the podcast is you're creating all this content. I mean, you've already got it,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're recording it. You can chop that up and make little bits. You can record in advance. I love to say, I mean, with a podcast, you're already doing that. But if you've got your pillar points in brand builders group, you can, yeah, if you're going to make videos, like do your touch points, record a bunch in advance, then you're not having to show up all the time. Scheduling in advance, I actually, like 2 years ago, created a ton of like evergreen posts that are like always relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And I use a software called Smarter Queue that will recycle your posts, but it
Oh,
does it in a way where it's not the same. Like, so you write like 5 different captions and 5 different photos, and it will make 25 posts. Like it combines the
whoa.
yeah, like
That's awesome.
combines the different, so it looks fresh, but
Yeah.
you made it and it like 2 years ago. I've still got stuff posting and it like puts it to the bottom of your queue. So it's 3 months later, it's doing that
Okay.
post again. So and people will be like, You're everywhere on social media. I see you everywhere. I was like, oh yeah. They don't know it's automated. So there's
You're
some
like,
things like that you can do. So you're not having to like every day, show up or share your whole life or whatever. And then just having a little bit of a mindset shift. I think I go into that a little bit in the book about because we've got to connect with somebody. We've got to put ourselves out there somehow. So being able to tell ourselves like our message is really important. We're helping a lot of people, showing up
yeah.
in some way to help them is part of our mission, right? Having a deeper why. And then I share a lot of examples of famous people who are introverts that you might not know about.
Ooh,
Uh, you know,
I want
like,
to know some.
yeah, Beyonce is one.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
let's see who else. Oh, I can't remember. There's a bunch.
Eh,
And we talk a little bit. Some of them I found like interviews and stuff where they talked about being an introvert. And oh, I think Lady Gaga is another one.
okay.
Yeah. So and I talk about a little bit about creating like an alter ego for yourself. That's kind of like your stage person, right?
Yes.
So you
Oh,
you
I love it.
envision yourself as this a little more energetic person who maybe has these qualities of someone you'd like to be. And authenticity is really important to me and to introverts, but I don't feel like that's changing who you are. It's just bringing out a part of you that you don't use very often or
Yeah.
that maybe you're afraid to show
Mm,
to
yeah.
kind of help you in those areas where like I want to be a speaker. I do some speaking. I would love to be better at that. And that's a part of me that's there, right? Like it
Right.
just needs to be developed a little
Hmm.
better. So,
I like that. So have you ever heard of the book The Alter Ego?
no, I haven't heard of that one.
Oh, it's really good. I'm totally drawing a blank on his name. Is it? I'll get back to you
Okay,
and
I'll have to check
the listeners. But it is a fascinating book where he did research on all the top athletes would like there was like a common thread in how they would put on a persona
that.
on the
Hmm.
field versus off the
Yeah.
field. And anyway, just so fascinating about how it's actually really natural to, okay, I'm putting on my persona of
Right.
this is who I show up as
Yeah.
on stage or on the camera or wherever. And I love that you gave that grace and like, no, it's actually just stepping into more of who you are, a different part of you that
Right,
maybe
right.
doesn't show up all the time.
Yeah, right. Well, if you think about it, we show up differently for different people
Right.
in our lives anyway, in different situations, right? Like I behave a lot differently when I'm at my parents' house versus in a business meeting or something,
Right.
right? Like
Totally.
yeah, it's just a different part of you that you're showing to the people you're with based on a
Yeah,
situation. So,
absolutely. Yeah. So permission for you guys to grab an alternate ego and to like think of who is it that you resonate with before you sit down and press record on the mic.
right,
Like, how do you want to show up? That is such a great tool.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So another one would be the TMI conundrum that you talk about, where I feel like this is so common. Anytime, like I'm 9 years into podcasting, and I still have moments where I'm like, that was TMI. That was too much. I'm done. So, how do you combat that?
Yeah, so it's funny the generational gap in that. Like, my mom is always like, "How could you share that on social media? Like, that was so personal. Like, that's airing your laundry." And I'm like, but when I share something that is maybe a struggle I had and how I overcame it or whatever, or even if I haven't overcome it, I'm like, "Hey, I'm struggling with this thing." I always get so many comments or people reaching out privately like, "Thank you for sharing that. I'm struggling with the same thing," or that kind of thing. So again, I think it goes back to your mission. What are you all about? Because I don't think we should share everything, right? Like thinking about our brand especially, right? What's going to be helpful for people? What's going to create the image you want to portray?
Mhm.
And just kind of running it through that filter. And I have gotten more selective about what I post, just thinking about like, this is my reputation, this is my brand,
Mm.
but also being authentic. I definitely get more engagement on my personal Facebook than my business one because it is all a little,
Yeah.
about just my business. And I think that's important for a personal brand. Most like Rory in Brand Builders Group, his personal Facebook has way more followers than the Brand Builders Group or
Right.
Instagram.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's talking on videos. That's,
Right.
they're sharing, they're at the pool with the kids and he's sharing some kind of message. So I think it's okay to share things you might maybe think, and things have changed too, right? Like for years, I resisted posting videos from my minivan. Just didn't think it was on brand for me because I'm all about like a polished image and stuff. But finally, I was just like, you know what? Like, I have time to make a quick video while I'm waiting for my
Yeah.
kids, for school. So I'm just gonna do it here, and nobody cares. Like, especially
No.
after COVID, everyone's just like, it doesn't matter what's in your background, like there's a cat walking through the screen. So things have changed a lot. The expectation around the content you create and the
Yeah.
stories that you share. People want to hear real things, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I think, and like bringing it into the podcasting conversation as well as social media, like always having that. I feel like we all genuinely know what's too much, really,
Yeah. Right.
versus just being authentic. Like, I love like just showing up in your chapter, like the very beginning of your intro, you said you said I carried a watermelon
Right.
a moment, and I was like, oh, I totally know those moments where you're like, hi, I carried a watermelon.
Yeah.
Like
What did I just
just
say? Oh,
awkward moments,
yeah.
which is that's like real of like,
Right.
yeah, I'm showing up with a stuffy nose and you know, like this is just real life. So I love that. Okay, I think the last one that I wanted to talk about is another one that I think is really big for introverted podcasters is facing that camera fear of like, oh, I have to show up and on a camera. And yes, granted, there are options to just do audio, but
Mhm.
when you are knowing that God's calling you to show up as a face on
Mhm.
YouTube, what are some of those tips for introverts in that situation?
Sure. Well, I share some basic advice for just making your video look and sound good. I think that's if you've got that dialed in, you don't have to worry about it. So like you have this nice background, it's probably there all the time, you're not having to change it up. Lighting, making sure you're going to look a lot better if you've got some decent light. For the ladies, if you wear makeup, I kind of have my bare minimum 5-minute face that I try to, I don't look dead, right?
Yep.
So all those things, if you just don't have to think about them, they're dialed in. And then again, just coming down to maybe like a little bit of pep talk for yourself. And like you said, having your points on a post-it note, or if I'm doing a reel or something and I want to make sure I don't forget something, I'll just like paste it up in front of me,
Yes.
kind of thing. And then for podcasting, if you're interviewing people, I think for me, I feel a little more at ease when I'm just, look, we're just gonna have a conversation. I'm not having to like, make a speech or whatever. I think that feels more comfortable for me putting up my camera, especially if the host is nice.
Yes. That would be awkward for anyone
Yeah,
if you had a
yeah.
mean podcast host.
I had one interview once that was weird. It was just like a weird guy. I don't know. Most of them have been great.
All right, podcasters, don't be
Yeah,
weird in
don't be
that
weird.
way or mean. Oh man. This is so good and so helpful, I think, for both extroverts and introverts.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think we all struggle in various areas of showing up, and I think specifically for today, just knowing that we are uniquely qualified to be a podcaster is such an encouragement. And I just appreciate you sharing some of those tips. Before we wrap up, I would love to know, is there anything else that you would like to say to podcasters who are introverts?
So let's see, what would I say? I would just say go for it, right? Like I last year I was like, should I write a book or do a podcast? And I decided to do the book first. But it doesn't matter, right? Like I was talking to my business coach and they're like, doesn't matter, just pick one. And you can, either use the podcast as material for your book or the book as material for your podcast. So just
Yes.
go for it, and try to have confidence and know it's probably going to be crappy when you start
Yep.
anything, right? Like I'm sure you tell people that.
In
And but
those words, but
yeah,
yes.
right.
We all
But yeah, just be confident in your message, right? Like you said,
yeah.
you feel like you're being called to share something with
Mhm.
people that maybe you've overcome something that you want to help people with. That message is important to somebody, and you're an authority in it. If you know something that other people don't,
Mhm.
and they want to hear it, then just go for it.
Mm, love it. That's so encouraging and so needed in the introverted's brain where they're analyzing every
Mhm.
little thing. So just to hear a fellow introvert say,
Right.
just go for it. And I do get that question a lot is do you write the book first or do you start the
Mhm.
podcast first? And yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
either
that's
one.
like the
Yeah,
answer is yes, just start it.
right,
It's
right.
one of them. Pick one and
Yeah.
go for it. Well, thank you
Well,
so much. Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm a good writer. Like I've had a lot of articles and stuff published, so that was for me like kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Like I'll just do the book first, and speaking for me is a skill I'm developing, but I definitely want to do it. I think it is perfect for the introverts and a super awesome way to get yourself out there in your message. So I
Yeah.
think what you're doing is awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I resonate with that too. Like that's part of my story was I love to write and I did not want to use my voice, but it was very clear that God was telling me to use my voice. So I did. I really went all in on a podcast and after years of blogging and
Mm,
then just turned it more into a podcast, but now he's bringing me back around to write
mm,
a book based
mhm.
off of what I recorded in
Right,
the
right.
first podcast. So it all comes back around for all of us. So, yeah. This has been so great. I really appreciate you, Tanya, and just many blessings on your book. And you guys, she's going to tell you where to find her book and where to find her to connect with her if you want to chat more.
Yeah, so the book isn't quite published yet. It's written, it's just not
Yay.
on Amazon yet. And so if you go to workstorycreative.com/free chapter, you can get the introduction and first chapter for free. And then you'll be on my email list and I'll tell you when it launches. And the Kindle version will be 99 cents for a while. So you guys can
Woo.
help me get to bestseller status.
That's right.
That's the plan, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would love to share it with you all, and we can connect that way. So
Awesome. Love it. All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in again, and we will be back next week with more. Thank you. Thanks for listening today. Hey, I want you to know that there is an opportunity for you and I to connect. I would love to do that. Find a link below and we can schedule a one-on-one free 15-minute consultation. I want to hear, where are you in your podcasting journey, and how can I help serve you and help you bring that kingdom impact dream into reality?